Hey, what's up? This is Zach here at the GM podcast in Las Vegas at the AWS reInvent event. Super excited to be here with YK to talk about really whatever we want in tech. So, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me here, Zach. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so before we kind of get into things, can you just tell us about like who you are and what company you're representing here today and your position?
Sure. Let me think about like where to start. The reason why I'm here is because I'm essentially one of the exhibitors or a sponsor. Well, I'm one of them anyway. And the company is called SourceGraph. It's a company that has two products: a code search product and an AI coding assistant product. And you know, you mentioned that you wanted to talk to founders. I consider myself a founder. I was a full-time founder before, not anymore, but I'm still, you could say, a part-time founder, and that's why I'm here.
So, what does the company do? Can you talk us through maybe what you guys are doing?
Yeah,
What the
so
company does?
yeah, the company started about 10, 11 years ago as essentially a search engine company, for your code base. So, you have your code base be ingested. You can search across, any number of repos, any number of lines of code really quickly. So that's the product that's been around for about 10 years. And last year, we started a new product that's essentially a Copilot competitor,
Mhm.
but that's able to handle any number of code bases, large code base stuff like that.
So, can you talk about maybe what made you or why you guys created this competitor?
Right. So to just for full transparency, I wasn't there when this product was created. I've been at the company for about 7 months. But I think the reason why they created it, well, one of the reasons was because they felt like GitHub Copilot wasn't going in a direction that's really productive and fast enough.
Hmm.
So, in my opinion, and I think in their opinion too, their autocomplete is pretty good, to be honest, right? Like, to give them full credit. But if you look at their chat, they started kind of slow. They started with GPT 3.5, which is not very capable compared to GPT 4 or Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and there are a couple of other like small or major issues like that. And I think they wanted to address that problem.
So, kind of from your perspective, what would you say is like the biggest sort of uh, need for this in the industry right now?
Well, I think that's a really good question because you could say, oh, there are so many Copilot alternatives at this point. There's Cursor, there's Codium. I mean, if I'm like trying to mention competitors, I can probably mention like 5, 6 of them. But the way I think we see, the way I personally see, is that there are these enterprise code bases that are really, really complex, really large, and they may, uh, they may reside across like multiple code hosts, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, and so on. And Copilot is not able to handle it. Any of these, other alternatives not able to handle it. And I think that's why it's good for a product like this to exist.
Awesome. So, kind of taking it back to the event here today, we're at AWS reInvent. What made you guys want to sponsor and exhibit here at the event?
Right. So we sponsored, reInvent last year, and my understanding is that we had really good experience there. I understand that there's going to be so many people there. The quality of the sort of, I guess, attendance is really good, and there's going to be both developers and decision makers, which is really important for us. Because we are, um, if you're not familiar with like SaaS companies, most of them target either individuals or like small companies or large enterprises. We target pretty much everything, from the biggest enterprises like um, this company called Lido and other companies that you can
I'm
find.
familiar with Lido.
Yeah,
That's cool.
they're one of our customers, and Palo Alto Networks. So and Stripe, some of these largest companies, all the way down to individual developers, and it's rare for a company to target both of them, and that's what we are trying to do.
So, kind of what would you say, because you said it was really productive for you guys last year, like what sort of like what does that really mean? Like how can an event be productive to you guys? Because a lot of
Right.
people who are watching this are going to say, AWS reInvent looks really cool. Should I decide to go next year? Should I exhibit? So it's really kind of interesting to get your perspective about how it
Right.
went, or why you even decided to come back, I guess, and do it again.
Right. So the first thing I would say is, it's not for everyone. It's
Okay.
not the right event for everyone. I'm not no event is right for everyone, right? And it's not right for every company either. I think it is right for companies that are willing to, really go big on the market. They have a mature product and they have a mature enough sales team and everything. And then, this is a great way to meet potential customers, maybe learn about, potential competitors, what's out there. So I would say, if you're a company, if it's mature enough, you should definitely be here.
What size of companies are you saying, like mature, like, maybe a couple hundred employees, like a public company, like when you say like mature enough, like can you maybe break that down a
Right.
little bit?
Yeah. So I can try to break it down and maybe give you like maybe a couple of examples. I don't think it's the number of employees that matters. It's more about the infrastructure the infrastructure that you have. Both technically and, like I said, sales wise too. Because when you're in front of a decision maker, they'll ask you things about the security concerns and if it's able to scale to the system, if it's private enough, if you have a on-prem option, stuff like that. So you need to be in a position where you can answer those questions. And again, a couple other examples here from the conference. There's Datadog, there's Yugabyte. These are companies that are able to serve smaller sort of individual developers, but also are ready to serve enterprise level customers too.
Very interesting. So it's kind of interesting because it is like an AWS. Well, that's what it's called. Like, does your product like work with AWS?
Yes, it does. So the main way is AWS Bedrock. Are you familiar with
No,
Bedrock?
please explain it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's their offering, basically of their, AI API offering where they have full control over the infrastructure of their own models as well as cloud models. That's my understanding. And, it's essentially the same thing as what you would get, directly from Anthropic, but, you get additional security, enterprise features, stuff like that. And
No, yes,
yeah,
sir.
I think the way it makes sense for us to be here. Part of the reason is because our product works with Bedrock. Instead of relying on an OpenAI API and stuff like that, there is an option to use AWS Bedrock.
Why decide to use Bedrock versus OpenAI?
We offer everything. We
Yeah.
offer. I think it's all about options because some companies like to use AWS, some other companies like to use Azure. Maybe other companies like to use OpenAI or open source models. So it's good to have options.
Awesome. So you kind of provide those options
Yep.
for your customers. That's super
Right.
cool. So kind of I guess getting into sort of where you see like the future of the company, where do you guys see yourselves in maybe 1 year, 5 years, and yeah.
Right. So it is a question that we've been asking ourselves for a good part of the past year because again there are so many alternatives competitors. But personally, I see as a couple things. Again, personal opinions, right? One is I think the best mode any company, not just us, can have is the speed of execution and ideas and vision. It's not necessarily about like having the best ideas themselves, but also have the ability to manage the team well and have good leadership and vision to actually go for those ideas. And then another one is this might sound kind of boring, but customer service, good sales, these basics, business fundamentals matters. And then the third thing, which is more of a personal opinion, is how can we make our system more more intelligent? Not just using these AI APIs directly, because then there's no differentiation. How can we put them together in a way that makes us smarter?
And I guess sort of like, where do you see those, like, what is the biggest thing that I guess your customers ask you? Like, in terms of like, why should I use you guys, or like what do they ask you? What kind of questions do they ask you?
So the most common question that we get is like, how is it different from Copilot, or how is it different from these other products? And our answers used to be kind of twofold. One is we're able to, like I said, ingest any number of repos across many code hosts, and then also your flexibility of being able to deploy any sort of model in any way you want, including on-prem models, open source models. So that was one that is still one of the strengths, but I know Copilot is starting to catch up. Yeah, I guess I already mentioned those two together. The one that we're excited about, that I'm personally excited about, is again this idea of making our AI system itself smarter. And what we've done recently, which is a sort of a beta feature, is we gave our AI system the ability to self-reflect on itself. Yeah.
It's like a conscious.
I mean, not quite. I mean, it is a tough line to say, like, is it reasoning, or is it like, mimicking reasoning, but it feels like reasoning.
That's like a conscious kind of, right? Like if you can reflect on your own actions,
it is getting there. It's not quite there. It's not AGI, but it is, getting smarter and smarter, I think.
And why is that so important? Like reflecting on your own actions for AI.
So again, a lot of this is my personal opinion, but
yeah, of course.
Yeah. The problem with these AI systems that we see, like Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, all of these, one of the problems is that it tries to answer a question no matter what. Like, even if it doesn't know anything, it tries to come up with just some basically BS, and that's annoying. So the question is, first of all, does it have enough information, enough context to be able to answer the user's question? If the user asks a question about your code base, maybe the AI system doesn't know about it, or if it asks something about Slack, your internal messages, maybe it should know about it, or it should have a way to like search through it, but it doesn't have a way to do that. So I think we should create a system. Someone should create a system. It should be us, ideally, that's able to decide, okay, what kind of context do I need on top of whatever I have.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's like, for example, it's like you could be like, I know that it's maybe you texted your mom or something and talked about going out to get dinner, but if you asked an AI right now, like, hey, like, what did I text my mom about getting dinner? Like, it would be like,
exactly.
give you some random answer versus actually contextualizing what I'm asking by going through my data.
Right. That's pretty much it. And it is a tricky thing because you might not want your AI system to read your message with your mom, right? But I think in work context, it's a lot more important, and in a way, it's less sensitive. It's less of a personal information. It's just work information. You just need to get things done.
Oh, that could really cut through a lot of the noise. How big is like your guys' company right now, and sort of like, I just kind of starting there because I'm actually like still learning, for our audience.
Yeah. So the company is around 160, 170 people right now, I think, if I remember correctly. We're still growing, and honestly, we need to grow faster, in my personal opinion, because again, there are so many competitors, and some of them are doing a really good job. So, we need more people to basically kick their ass.
Yeah, no, I agree. And kind of something I've been thinking about a lot for AI is like kind of like the end game, like for all this. Like, is there sort of like going to be a winner? Like, because if you think of search engine, Google, right?
Yeah.
Google sort of just has monopoly on that. I mean, you could argue Bing, you could talk about other browsers, but it's largely Google. And for Chat GPT and these other, like they're trying to assert sort of like dominance. Do you see a world in which there is sort of like one winner, or do you see a world where there's many sort of options and you use which one for whatever purpose you need?
I think search engines is a good example. Cloud is another example. If you look at actually any of these markets, it's usually the first one takes 80% or more. and then the second one takes maybe 15%, let's say. So if you look at cloud, AWS is obviously the biggest winner, and then after that it's Azure, maybe 10%. I'm not sure exactly, and then Google Cloud, less than 5% maybe. So I think it's going to be the same sort of thing. If you look at just AI, but it depends on sort of the categories too. There might be a winner for the consumer category. That might be ChatGPT probably. There might be a category for API winners. That could be Anthropic. We're yet to see that. And then there will be a winner. A couple winners. One big winner, and then a couple of smaller winners for the code AI category too.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for the fantastic interview. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with?
Well, let me first learn a little bit about you guys. So I understand that a lot of people are interested in Web3. Probably a lot of them are interested in AI. I want to know, like, what do they want to learn about?
I mean, I think for us, the audience is just, a lot of them are going to ask, like, how can I get involved? That's what a lot of them want to know. Like, do I follow? If I'm interested in this technology, like, what's the first step to sort of, join in a way, or that's,
yeah. I'm glad, that's a common question, because it is something I got asked a couple times too. And, I have a full video coming up. It's going to be on my channel called CS Dojo, but
what's the channel?
CS Dojo.
CS Dojo, guys.
Yeah.
Give it a follow.
But the gist of, that video and, how to get into it is you want to basically start building stuff. You could say, oh, do I need to get a master's? Sure, if you want to, there's nothing wrong with, getting a master's, PhD, but that's not the right decision for everyone. For a lot of other people, I think the right thing to do is start building, start hacking, things together, start understanding things, and then don't be afraid to like dig into stuff, because I think a lot of people kind of skim the surface and they're like, oh, I know how to build stuff with LangChain. That's cool. That I'm done. But I would ask, okay, if you can do that with LangChain, what about Llama Index? What about Crew AI? Try different things, see what you can learn, and then if you're even curious, you can go into source code, right? Because a lot of these frameworks are open sourced, so you can just dive into source code and learn more about it.
Awesome. So you heard it here yourself. Dive into the source code, learn about it, the open source stuff, dig in. Thank you so much for the fantastic interview. I learned a lot. I love talking about AI. I can tell that you are really well learned in this space. So it's really nice to speak with someone who has such a depth of knowledge. So I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audience will also.
Great.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much, and cheers.
Hey, what's up?
But it's not something Genzio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a hive.
How do you know we do not understand?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Get back at the Genzio Media House.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.